everyone! Welcome to our third episode of Must Read Monday. My name is Dabney and I'm the young adult librarian at the Twin Lakes Library System. I'm so glad y'all can join us today because I'm going to be talking about one of my all-time favorite books, I Wish You All the Best by Mason Deaver. Oh, hi! People are joining. I'm so excited. Okay, so first of all, this book is available on Hoopla as an audiobook, and I just listened to it last week. It is so good. I read the book last year and then listened to it to refresh my memory, but it's great. It is also one of the current Georgia Peach Award nominees, so check out that list on their website. And it's also listed as one of the best books of 2019 by NPR, BuzzFeed, Book Riot, Goodreads, Junior Library Guild, and the Young Adult Library Association. Young Adult Library Services Association, so very well regarded. So I'm just going to jump in with a little bit of a summary with no spoilers, talk about some themes, and then get into some other topics. So, what you should know about this book. So this book is about Ben. Ben is non-binary, and they decide to come out to their parents. It's their senior year over the winter holidays, and sadly, Ben's parents react really horribly and kick them out. So Ben is kind of left with basically nothing, like not even shoes or a phone. And they call their older sister Hannah, who they haven't seen or spoken to in 10 years. And Hannah, thankfully, comes to get them, brings them home, and Ben ends up living with Hannah and her husband, Thomas. So they get Ben enrolled at the high school where Thomas teaches, and Ben is basically having to start over, end of senior year. A lot of things are up in the air, and it's Ben is going through a lot. So some of the themes in this book can be like pretty heavy, because Ben is dealing with coming out and having that backfire, facing rejection from family, being kicked out, starting over again, and all that kind of sparks some deeper issues. So Ben ends up dealing with like depression and anxiety, as well as some like ongoing issues with like social dysphoria, body dysmorphia. If you don't know what those terms are, we're going to get to them in a little bit at the end of this book talk. So, all of that is like pretty heavy, but thankfully Ben does have a very great support system that they end up developing. So first of all, older sister Hannah, then brother-in-law Thomas. They also go to therapy, so their therapist is helping them. Their art teacher at their new high school is really supportive and gives Ben like basically free reign of the art room to work on their projects, and through that you kind of see art as like therapy and healing. But another great supportive person in Ben's life is Nathan, and Nathan is just like a really sweet, friendly guy, very outgoing, and is like, committed to making sure that Ben feels accepted and welcomed. Ben is not out to anyone at their new high school, which is kind of a struggle for them, because even when you're not out and someone misgenders you, like, it still hurts. Like, even though they like might not know any better, it's still like a little arrow to your heart. Anyways, but so yeah, Nathan is there supporting Ben, and introduces Ben to his friends, Sophie and Malika. They're really great. And who else? Oh, and then the other really supportive person in Ben's found family is Mariah, who is also non-binary, and they are internet friends. And Mariah does like a really popular blog and travels around and does like seminars about creating like safe spaces for LGBTQ youth. So all that to say, Ben is, going through a lot, but has a support system, and that was really wonderful reading that in a YA book. Like all the themes talked about in this book, I felt, were just really refreshing. And reading Ben's journey as they're trying to start over and look at like what the future is going to be like. It's just really good. I don't know. It's like a lot of feels. And I think this book is really groundbreaking because it was the first book that I remember reading with a non-binary main character. I've read some books and like comics and webcomics where there are non-binary side characters, but this is the first time where you really get the perspective of somebody who's non-binary. And just in case you saw the pronoun pin, I am also non-binary, so a lot of what's written about in this book, I was like, yeah, I get it. I feel this so much. And the author, by the way, Mason Deaver, is also non-binary and uses they, them pronouns. So, let me look at my notes real quick because I want to make sure I covered everything I was going to talk about. Yeah. Oh, another thing I was going to talk about this book is, so yeah, a lot of it is been working through issues, but there's also like a very sweet love story, which I'm not going to talk about because, it's kind of a spoiler, but there is a love story in there, and there is discussion about, both like gender identity and sexuality, because sometimes people think like those are the same thing somehow, and they're not. So it's like, Ben is non-binary, and they are attracted to masculine presenting people. So, yeah, there's that as well. And there's lots of really good, diverse characters in this book, and lots of really good rep. There's other LGBTQ characters and people from different backgrounds, and I just always really love that when I'm reading books because, one thing about reading is, first of all, if you're reading a book and it's a character who's not like you, you can still like connect to them, and that's still creating like empathy and understanding with you. And then for somebody who is like, maybe from an identity that's not written about very much, if they pick up a book and they're like, oh my gosh, this person's non-binary, like I am too. It's just really important for readers to find themselves in fiction and shows. So yes, it's a really important book to me. And okay, so that's kind of it about the book. I would just highly recommend it. If you read it, let us know. But then if you've been listening to this whole thing and you're like, Dabney, I have no idea what you're talking about when you say things like non-binary and dysphoria, like I don't understand. So kind of in just like really basic terms, so like when I'm telling somebody like I'm non-binary, I say, I don't identify as female, I don't identify as male, I don't identify as any gender. So I'm non-binary, but another term for that is agender, which is under the non-binary umbrella. So there's like a lot of identities that kind of fall under non-binary, like genderfluid or genderqueer or bigender. So I know people kind of say like don't use Wikipedia, but Honestly, if you Google non-binary and go to the Wikipedia page, it's a good starting point to read about different gender identities. And non-binary also falls under the transgender umbrella, which basically, again, if like this is kind of new information to you, somebody is cisgender if, like, you know, when you're born, usually you're assigned a gender. So typically somebody's like, okay, the doctor's like, you're male, you're female. And, you know, if you were assigned, say, female at birth, and, you know, you're growing up and you're like, yeah, I'm female, then you are cisgender. But if you were assigned female at birth, but you're growing up and you're like, no, that's not right, I'm a guy, or I'm non-binary, whatever, then you're transgender. And so, like, under that transgender umbrella, there's also, like, the non-binary identities. So that's kind of, like, very basic level. And also, I think I mentioned, you know, Ben uses they, them pronouns, and those are gender-neutral pronouns. So those are not the only gender-neutral pronouns. There's like a whole lot more, and I feel like I'm still like always learning about these things. Like some, what did I read recently? It's a graphic novel, Genderqueer, and so like that's a memoir, and the person it's about uses not they, them. I think it's like, I'm gonna forget now because my memory's bad. But anyways, there's different gender neutral pronouns. That's all I was gonna say. And yeah, also non-binary people don't have to use gender neutral pronouns. They can use whatever pronouns they want. You know, some people are like, oh, I'm he, him, or she, her, or I'm all the pronouns. You know, it just varies person to person. So it's always good to like ask, unless, you know, with people, like, you can't tell what gender someone is just by like looking at them, unless they happen to have a pronoun pin on, and then, you know, that's a pretty safe bet. But yeah, I'm kind of rambling. I'm sorry. There's a lot to cover. So yeah, going kind of off of that, in case you were curious, I also made like a list of people, like non-binary celebrities. So again, that's just like kind of an umbrella term. They have like more specific terms for how they identify, but people you might recognize. So Jonathan Van Ness from Queer Eye, Lachlan Watson from Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, India Moore from Pose, Amanda Stenberg from Everything Everything and the Hate You Give, Sam Smith, Janelle Monáe. And like I said again, people use different pronouns. So if you like look them up on their social media, you know, usually they'll say like, these are my pronouns. Not everyone does that, but I do that. Some people do that. Anyways, again, you can't just assume people's gender. But all right, so last of all, I'm going to talk about some other books you can read. Some of them are online and some of them are not. So real quick, I'm going to do a few nonfiction books that we have at the library. They're not online, sadly, but there's the Gender Quest workbook, which is really good if you're working through your gender. A quick and easy guide to they, them pronouns. And then this is a picture book, but it's amazing. It feels good to be yourself, a book about gender identity. Love this book. And then I have a few graphic novels here with non-binary characters that I've read recently. There's Mooncakes with a non-binary werewolf. The Avant-Gardes, a college basketball team, and one of the characters is non-binary. The Tea Dragon Festival. This is a sequel to the Tea Dragon Society. It's I love these books so much. They're beautiful. But the main character in this, Ren, is non-binary. And then just like a couple books, other like non-binary identities, symptoms of being human. The main character is genderfluid. The Magnus Chase series by Rick Riordan. Alex Fierro, child of Loki, is transgender and genderfluid. Lizard Radio, the character, I can't remember if it's like genderqueer or non-binary, but that one. Moth in the Whisper, I believe the main character is genderqueer. And Out of Salem, I really love this book. There's lots of, like, there's a lot going on, but it's really good. But one of the characters is genderqueer zombie, and then there's also like a lesbian werewolf. It's so good. And then I have like a whole list of other books that are available, like on Hoopla, about like non-binary characters, and I'm gonna have some other resources posted along with this video. So yeah, thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions, just leave us a comment or a message, and we'll get back with you. We have some other programs this week on Instagram Live. We have Crafting in Quarantine this Wednesday at 3:30. We will be doing face mask, and then Friday is Slice of Life at 3:30, and I'm going to be talking about sort of like green living, composting, recycling, all that good stuff. But yeah, thank you for tuning in. See y'all later. Bye.